Hello, Bobby Torres of Frightbox recording here, and in this video I'm going to be telling you why I've just made the difficult decision to finally close my project studio after 19 years of being in business. Let's dive into it. Now, on the topic of studios, if you spend any time with me in the studio, I'm sure you know by now that I can't live without my coffee. And as I've gotten older and more mature, I've become much pickier with the coffee that I drink. And with that being said, I'm happy to announce that this video is sponsored by Ripon Roasters. Now, what I love about Ripon Roasters is that the quality of the coffee is top notch and every single order is roasted fresh. They provide a variety of different roasts, light, medium, and dark roasts. I'm currently enjoying the Senna medium Brazilian roast, which is quite tasty. They also offer decaf and K-Cups, if you're a K-Cup fan. If you're as much of a fan as I am when it comes to coffee, I mean, this fuels all my productions, I'd highly recommend checking out Ripon Roasters. I will leave a link below to their online store. Click it and order yourself some high quality coffee. So yes, after almost 2 decades, I've decided to close my studio. And let's be clear here, my studio was just a simple 16 by 16 project studio that was in a commercial district in a town close to where I live. But let me tell you, that did not hold me back. I've recorded hundreds, literally hundreds of projects and met so many talented musicians and have made so many great friends. Some of those friends are actually lifelong friends that I have to this day. Within that tiny space, I also used to record bands live. And even though the space wasn't perfect by any means, I made it work for me, and I'm still proud of so many of the records that were recorded within that project studio, that simple project studio. As a matter of fact, at one point, I even had 2 project studios. I had the one that was on the 3rd floor, and I had a second project studio on the 2nd floor. At this time, I had so many projects going on at once that I would have a producer working on maybe vocals downstairs while I was tracking guitars upstairs, or maybe I was tracking drums upstairs and someone was tracking guitars and DIs downstairs. It was a great time. So you might be wondering, well, if the studio was that great, why'd you close it? And this is a good question, and I'm gonna explain to you exactly what led to this decision. But before I jump into the reasons, let's dive back about a month ago and relive the last few days of my time at that studio, the last few projects, as well as the process of getting all of my stuff out of there, because it took a lot of work. Let's check it out. This is the last beat, actually it's the last thing ever to be recorded in the original Frightbox recording. Let's check it out. That's a wrap. That's a wrap. This desk, along with some of the elements of the rig itself, have been inside of this room for 18 years. And it's finally time to break it all down and move it out. Let's get to work. All right, well, everything is out of the desk now, and it's time to take it all apart so I can bring it home. Really leaning out here. Just got my 2 palm trees, the old cloak that was behind the drums, half of a couch, my old table, studio, seat or chair, a ladder and a vacuum. And I'm leaving my LED lights here that my good friend Dominic, the band Me With Creeps, put up many years ago. Hopefully the next tenant will like it. Cloakless drum corner. I haven't seen that in a long time. All right, well, this is the room that I recorded in from 2005 all the way up until 2024. As you can see, it is not a professional studio. It's actually really meant to be just a rehearsal space. There's no room treatment outside of some foam on the walls just to dampen the sound. But to be honest, this room worked for me for many, 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 many years. The only downside recently in the last few years is that the building is just filled with tons of loud, like death metal bands now, which is great, but not great when it comes to isolation when you're recording. But to be fair, these rooms are not meant to be recording studios. They're meant to be rehearsal studios. I mixed out of this room for many, many years, and I've tracked bands in this room up until this week. So I'm gonna miss this place. The last time I'll ever be doing this. Goodbye, room 301. You've more than served your purpose. Yeah, 18, really more like 19 years. That's a long time. That's literally almost half of my life. And I have such an emotional attachment to that place. I'm sort of a sentimental dude and I have so many great memories in that 16 by 16 room. But with all that being said, I had to let it go. It was time. It was long overdue. So now let's jump into the reason so I can get down and dirty and explain to you exactly why I've decided to make this very difficult decision. Number one, the building became extremely loud. Now, like I mentioned earlier in the video, to be fair, this building is not meant to house recording studios. The room that I was renting was technically a rehearsal room. But with that being said, I was really lucky and I didn't have many issues as far as noise was concerned. But just recently, I guess death metal is bigger than ever in my local area, and there are so many loud, obnoxious death metal bands that play in the building, and it made recording really difficult the last year that I was there. I'd have clients sitting in the room and we'd have to listen to blast beats blasting like right next door to us. Plus a new drummer moved in next door and he was constantly playing. But again, to be fair, these other tenants were paying rent and they deserved to practice in their rooms. It's totally fair. It just was becoming detrimental to my productions and also the projects that I was working on and the services that I was offering to clients. And if I'm being honest, I'm getting older and I value peace and quiet. I don't want to have guitars blasting in my face and I don't want to listen to blast beats when I'm not in the mood to listen to death metal. And that was becoming a problem in the last year, maybe the last year and a half to 2 years. I want peace and quiet. And number two, I would like to have access to multiple rooms in my studio. Again, my old project studio was just a 16 by 16 room. That was it. I did have that second room downstairs, but there was no real way to tie in downstairs. I was renting, I didn't own the building, I couldn't drill through the floor and add cabling. So I was limited to the space that I rented. I made it work. I would track drums with a drummer behind me. I would reamp guitars later by tracking DIs and then sending those DIs through real amps at a later date. And it worked. And I'm still happy with all of those productions. That wasn't the issue. It was the overall workflow that I was growing tired of. I would really like to be able to track tube amps while I'm sitting there with a client without having to reamp. I would love to be able to track drums without having the drummer blasting behind me, or at least I would like to have the option available to me. And this was just not possible in my dinky old project studio, unfortunately. I made it work for almost 20 years, but I want to move on. Reason number three, I really, at this point in my life, want to simplify my audio production existence. Over these last few years, I've started an online mixing community. I have online courses. I have this YouTube channel. And because of this, I ended up doing the majority of my mixing out of my home office. So I was mixing out of my home office, tracking and producing bands out of one of my 2 project studios. I was also subletting my space to another producer as well as multiple musicians. And things, honestly, we're just getting way too crazy. If you've watched this YouTube channel for any length of time, you know I value simplicity, and I was starting to live the antithesis of this idea. I'd go to the studio and have to readjust to the way that the studio sounded, and then when I'd mix the record at my house, I would have to readjust to the sound of my room all over again. I'd forget that certain plugins were installed on my home rig and they weren't installed on my mobile and studio rigs. And nowadays we all have so many plugins, this became very complicated. Nowadays, I just want one setup. Maybe a mobile rig for my Gorilla stuff, but just one setup for my productions, recording, content creation, producing, just one clean environment where I could do everything. So that's number 3. And the final and most important reason is that at this point in my career, I really want to improve the experience that my clients have when working with me. Now, I'm gonna be honest, these days, I only work with bands and musicians and clients that I really enjoy working with. And because of this, I want to take it up like 3 notches. The old studio was okay, but let's be honest, I was in a rundown building. I had very little control over the environment outside of the room that I was renting. It's a great space for someone that's in their 20s, maybe 30s, but now that I'm 40, it's time to take it up a notch. I want a space that's clean, a space that's pleasant to spend time in, awesome HVAC, constant airflow when I'm recording a band live, great lighting, an awesome vibe that I can control both inside the studio and even outside of the studio. Okay, so with all that being said, that's why I've decided to leave. You might be wondering, well, what are you gonna do next? Well, I'm happy to announce that I'm currently in the middle of having my studio designed by a super talented studio designer named Wilson Harwood. As a matter of fact, I highly recommend checking out his YouTube channel. It's called Soundproof Your Studio. And he is helping me design my dream studio. Now, I bought this house 2 years ago, so I do have the space and the property to build out a legitimate recording studio, and that's exactly what I'm doing right now. It's been a dream of mine for about 20 years and it's finally happening. And I'll be sharing the entire build process on this channel. So if you're interested in watching me take this journey, stick around, subscribe to the channel, click the little bell icon so you can be notified every time I upload a new video, and hop on this journey along with me. So right now, for the first time in almost 2 decades, I am studioless. I have no studio, just my house. And because of this, any project that I take on right now, I'll be having to tackle it guerrilla style, which I also really enjoy. As a matter of fact, I love recording in non-studio spaces. And one of my favorite things is to record drums in a non-studio space so I can capture a completely unique and special ambience and vibe. Now, on this topic, if you're interested in learning how you can achieve killer drum sounds out of your house, I have a video that you could check out right now where you could watch me in detail how I recorded album quality drum tracks within my dingy old garage. No acoustic treatment, no fancy mic preamps, just a simple interface, a handful of microphones, and a little bit of creativity. So if you're looking to skip over all the crap on the internet where people are telling you need all this fancy gear to achieve great results, let's put an end to it and learn how to track pro-level drum tracks the Frightbox way. Until next time, drink that Rippin' Roasters.